All right, we're live, so you should start seeing the participants down in the bottom. You'll see that number grow.
Yes.
And we'll give everyone some time to get out of the waiting room that they've been in and live with us.
Awesome. Yeah, let's wait a little bit. So that number is quickly growing.
Quickly growing. Yeah. Apparently people want to talk to you.
Hopefully. Hopefully.
Lots of people saying hi, Timo. Hi, Don. Hi, hi, Eva. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, Lisa is there.
Watch out.
Dawn, Eva, yeah. Hi. Lorna is there. Oh, hi. Hi to Oregon. Denver, Lisa. Great to see you all. Paul is there from Chicago. Meg from Oregon. Glad to see, at least, you know, to see you or kind of interact with you virtually.
Exactly.
We can even see each other in person.
All over. Canada's in the house.
Vegas.
Whoop, whoop.
Ottawa. Oh, Kelly. Hi, Kelly.
Hey, Miner.
Wow.
I love it.
Number is still growing, right? So
the number is still growing.
A little bit more. Yeah.
That's good though.
We should kind of always do that, don't you think? So we just to have like one IPW appointment in an hour. It's way more.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. You know what? You get both sides of it. Some people say, I need more time. And others are like, no, that's okay. So I think it all depends on the person.
Well, you know,
clearly you're going to be an hour appointment, my friend. Yeah. Well, I think this number is going to continue to grow. So I think we should go ahead and get started and start the conversation. For those of you joining us, thank you very much. If you're new to our webinar series, Virtual Roundtables, my name is Shari Bailey. I am the Vice President of Connect Travel. And we started these a few weeks ago to stay in touch with each other. Really so we could have interaction and have conversations with people that are going to help us move through this situation and recover on the other end. So today, this week, we decided to kind of shift our focus towards international tour operators, find out how what's going on in their space. And Timo was nice enough to join us today exclusively so we could have a good conversation with him, find out what's going on in Germany, and find out just how you are and how America Unlimited is and your team. So we really appreciate you being here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Shari, for having me. And it's kind of crazy to see that it's not even like, 1.5 months ago that we saw each other in person at Connect Travel in Kissimmee. So it's kind of crazy how the world has turned within that really short time frame, actually. So yeah, Germany. So what we are struggling a lot here in Germany, as you can imagine, I'm sure as everyone else. So I think I was probably one of the very first few people predicting this whole thing. I was always running through the office and I'm like, oh, you know what? I think the borders are gonna shut down pretty soon. And people were actually laughing at me and they were like, yeah, that's not going to happen. And I don't think that's going to happen. So, but it came actually quicker than I thought. We probably struggle quite a bit here in Germany because of the fact that we have pretty strict German laws when it comes to travel. So not only that we have to kind of refund everything for the clients for free once they can travel, we also, obviously we have ongoing costs for for the salaries for our employees. We have the rent that we have to pay and everything. So that are the main challenges. Luckily, in Germany, we have a system where we can put our employees on something that's kind of translates dirty into kind of basically into short work, so they can we can cut their salary basically in half, and then the other half, a percentage of the other half gets funded by the government, and you can do that up to 100% basically, so you don't have to pay anything for them anymore. So a great way for, like, let's say restaurants and all these kinds of areas where the business has completely gone away and there is no, they are not open anymore, and all they have to pay is rent basically, and then they can have the people pay through that system basically. For us, that's not possible for the entire tourism branch basically, because we have to do the refunding for the clients, we have to do the rebookings, issue vouchers for people that want to rebook and everything. So we can't really have people covered by that system, only partly basically.
So that was going to be one of my questions. Germany is, they have one of the strongest consumer protection programs out there for travelers. Yes. Have there been any changes to it with this particular instance, a global pandemic? Has anything changed with that or made it a little bit easier for you?
Yeah, I'm not sure if everyone has followed me on my various social media channels, because I posted a lot there. Because people that know me know I'm a person that can't really sit still and do nothing. So I kind of have to do something to do that, or to do something about it. So I created an initiative actually for the entire tourism branch, and I did that together with the AER, which is basically a cooperation of different tour operators in Germany. There are around 1,000 tour operators organized there all over the place. So they are Africa specialists, generalists as well. And I asked them to kind of send in a video of, how many of your employees are in danger, how many trips do you have to cancel over the next few weeks, and so on and so forth. So we put together this video with a couple of ideas how the politics can change our situation that we are in at the moment. So, and then to answer your question, obviously a lot of corporations did that in Germany that had to do something with travel, and it actually eventually created some interest around the decision makers in the politics. So they are now rethinking these measures basically. And the interesting thing about that is that they are close to allowing us to do vouchers for our clients, so that the clients have to accept a voucher instead of a credit basically, and a full refund. So that would at least give us basically credit if you want, and not have us lose the bookings, just postpone the booking basically into the future. So the German government has actually already agreed to it, but the European Commission has to agree to it as well in order for it to come into place. And we haven't heard anything back from them so far. So at the moment it's not in place, but to answer your question, we got things moving.
That's great. So I know you mentioned it was to garner support for this particular voucher program. We're a travel family and we're tourism strong. Is there anything we can do in the US to help you with that?
Well, it kind of really depends on when and what kind of situation we are in. I think at the moment, there is no real help that you can give us, aside from obviously our partners, cutting us, cutting down on refunds and, canceling for free. This doesn't really apply to the DMOs so much, more to our receptive partners, but we are really good with them. So that's really fine. We're absolutely not worried about that. So far that has been a great relationship. But what especially the DMOs can do for us, moving forward, is that by the time that we are making strong, we are actually looking into coming back, and maybe in September, October, looking into travel for 2021, we can for sure, we for sure need a lot of cool campaigns, marketing runs, direct sale campaigns to go back into bringing these destinations and the US in total back on the radar, basically, with a clear message that it's safe to travel, and that there is, everything has opened up, and basically a welcoming message. What we've already talked to after the Trump election phase, where we struggled a little bit. So that's kind of how you can help us and come back with campaigns, come back with ideas and updates on products, obviously, be in contact again, and maybe doing this and doing webinars and seeing what kind of things can we do at that specific situations, because what we're going to see for the future is that as even eventually when it will come back, it won't come back 100% overnight. So it's probably the air traffic has to build up again slowly and stuff. The hotels have to reopen one by one, so it's kind of, it will take a little bit of time. So it will be quite challenging for us as well, because we will have to help the people on telling them what opportunities do they have, what kind of hotels have already opened up, where is it safe to go, which areas might still struggle, which are completely fine, and so on. So I think that those will be the challenges. So the help from your end is probably something we will definitely look into in the future.
Perfect. So one question came up on the chat when you're talking about the AER video that you did, and are other market leaders or your colleagues and competitors involved in this with you? Are they helping you with this? Is it a joint message?
It's a joint message. Like always, when you come up with really strong statements that you want to have, there are always other opinions as well. So there are also tour operators that want to refund everything, to make sure they don't get a mistrust basically from the clients. Which kind of jeopardizes a little bit what we try to do with the vouchers. But overall, the key message from everyone, and I think 80% probably of the tour operators in Germany and travel agents as well, want to have the vouchers in place. First of all, because they don't they don't lose the client. They basically hold on to them. And second of all, to keep a certain credit in the company, basically.
Right. Kind of going off of the line of vouchers, in one of your other podcasts, I heard that 2020 was actually going to be a banner year for you for the U.S. and travel to the U.S. And we appreciate that. But what's happening with rescheduling or canceling or vouchers for you? How does the rest of 2020 look? You mentioned September, or are you just focused on 2021?
To be honest, that's probably a very German way to look at it, but we always look at the worst case scenario. I'm always looking into what would happen if we would have to cancel the entire year. Will we be able to survive that with a clear answer? Taking the answer already beforehand is yes, we will. But it's kind of that it helps me to look at things more positive when it opens up earlier. So far, we canceled all the trips for April and now going into mid-May, end May, because we don't believe that anything will happen up until then. And then it will be pretty interesting what's going to happen up until then and what will happen into June, July, August. In Germany, they are already talking about about lightening up all the lockdowns here in Germany, but that will only really apply to, restaurants might open up again, or, hairdressers and all these kinds of, little shopping maybe, and will definitely not apply to traveling, not even within Germany. So I'm guessing if something will happen, we might look into September, October, which obviously will hit us pretty hard because it will involve cancellations throughout the entire summer.
So one of the questions I have is about travel patterns. And knowing you're canceling April and May, do you see 2021 shifting from normal German travel patterns? Normally it's spring and summer. Do you see that changing moving forward?
A little bit. I mean, what we are definitely seeing is that it obviously a lot of people try to shift into September, so a lot of focus goes into autumn. There's a discussion in Germany. Not sure if that's going to happen, but there's a discussion if the different states of Germany will probably move their summer vacation backwards, so people can still go on holiday. Although we don't even know if we are fine then. So, but there is a discussion, so that might help for us to keep a lot of bookings within this year still. But I would rather recommend for everyone, at least mentally, to focus on 21. To make sure we don't have to rebook and then rebook again. If that's not going to happen. So we rather suggest people to book into 21 if that's possible, or at least take the vouchers, which will then be valid to use until end of 21. So maybe even into 22, but that way that it's enough. It makes a lot more, it gives the client a way better perspective, because Germans kind of lose face to be able to go on holiday this year, especially long haul. So I would kind of recommend to everyone to focus more on the next year and see what are those campaigns that we might be able to promote travel into 21, which is not to say though that we can start them this year to promote next year, obviously, to create content already that we will be able to use, let's say, August, September onward, for campaigns, for product, for all kinds of ways that we can use to sell.
Okay.
Also, I'm seeing a lot of Q&As there, which
exactly, and one of those actually, I was just about to tell you that Annette, one of her questions was, more of a high level. Are you now getting consumer requests for fall and winter? Do you think the travel behavior, kind of like travel patterns changing, do you think their destinations will change? Do you think it will be more of a smaller destination or outside of the gateways rather than a big city? Do you think it'll be more outdoors, more rural, or outdoor excursions, so to speak? Do you think that will change at all?
Actually, I got the exact same question already a week ago when I did a podcast, and that's pretty interesting and not really easy to answer, because I don't know how it's going to be, but there are two different ways how you can approach it. I think one way would be that, as you mentioned, people might want to go more remote, into more remote areas, because they don't have a risk of being able to being too close with other people, being minimizing the risk of maybe getting an infection, or they just want to be for themselves after this kind of weird after this weird time that they have behind them. But I think there could also really be another explanation for it, that they will love to especially go into the big cities, into like the more urban areas, because they have been so separated for such a long time, that I think that might be there might be some kind of, because we all like to be social, right? So, and we all like to be with people and surrounded by people. So we might even see kind of a little bit of a boom come back after this. It also obviously depends quite a bit on how the whole situation will involve basically, and how everything will continue. Because if people are just allowing, going back slowly, step by step, basically, it's probably going to be a different travel behavior than, if it's closed off for such a long time and then you open up everything at once again, it will be completely different.
Right. So one of the other questions was, do you consider spring and summer your high season? And if so, do you have fall product? Do you need additional fall product if you think September and October might be an issue?
I mean, as you know, we are always happy to get new product, basically, and we still have our product managers in place that are still looking for it. Our target now is basically to look into 21. So we are obviously looking to add product, to maybe getting rid of a little bit of product as well, to shorten it down. What we are definitely planning to do a brochure in October, as we always do, to have something people have in hand for 21, and to make sure we are there when people look for it. And so we are definitely looking into expanding that product, not necessarily within this year, but going on into next year, and we haven't talked about this at all, if the lockdowns is going to continue for a while, which we all kind of expect, I think. How will the landscape of tourism look like in Europe or in Germany overall after this? Because we will probably face a lot of companies going into or filing for bankruptcy, and you kind of have to say it as it is, I think, because I know there are lots of travel agencies and tour operators that have been struggling before, and they will eventually not make it through this crisis. And then there are other tour operators, and I would include us in that, is that we are a very stable company. We have a lot of funds in the company, and we are, I think, likely to survive this crisis in any way. So, but we might have a lot less competition afterwards. I'm not only really planning on just surviving, I'm just kind of, looking into the future, saying, like, how can we might use that fact to grow quicker, and to make acquisitions and take over companies and stuff, which is kind of all like a big thought, which is still pretty unsure, because we don't know how it will go. But that I think you kind of have to have these things in your mind to make sure that that you're there, and that you might survive on a different level than others.
So kind of keeping in tune with that, I would think everyone here listening to you understands, or would mirror my opinion when I say that you are arguably one of the most innovative marketers in the travel and tourism space right now.
Hopefully.
And you are, my friend. And you're talking about doing things differently, not just surviving, but thriving in this time. Are there things you're thinking about now or doing now that that can be implemented? I mean, obviously you're thinking about it now, but do you have anything in the back of that crazy brain of yours that you're working on?
You mean like on a marketing level, or on a
level? Yeah.
Actually, I've having done so many podcasts like I've never done in the past, I actually got the feeling that that's really a really cool outlet that I want to focus on more. My idea is basically that I want to do a personal podcast with me, basically, where I will talk mostly to destinations in Germany, like the German representations, to actually have a lot of insights about specific destinations, which even we as a tour operator would not be able, to give in such a detailed way than a person who represents that specific area. So want to talk to them and make maybe a YouTube channel out of it, and a podcast then also. Talking about, the hidden gems, what would you recommend, which is definitely not mentioned in any kind of travel guide. What is your personal favorite beach? What is your, personal favorite bar, and why is that? And, maybe my ideas were also to kind of describe that on a very visual level, to make sure, can you describe a day in LA, for example, or in Dallas. I'm looking at the destinations that joined here. So in San Francisco, what are the hidden gems, and where would you want to go? Because I think that's kind of what people might be looking for after this, to get to know the destinations more in advance.
So as soon as you said destination podcast, I can imagine being an ex-DMO myself, that every DMO just sat up straighter, and their number one question is going to be, how do they get you that information? Everyone is obviously wanting to get information out right now. How's the best way to provide that for you? Is there an email? Is there a person?
Yeah, you can always get in contact with us by email. Shari, you can probably also distribute my contact details to everyone joining that don't have it yet. But I would also recommend, for the people that like to do it, I'm not forcing everyone, but to maybe friend me on Facebook, and maybe don't do Instagram, because that's not so much about business, but it's but maybe you can do Instagram as well, but LinkedIn and but especially Facebook, because what I'm doing there is I usually post the creative and innovative ideas that we have there, and how they look once they've been which they've come, or when they've come alive. So it's kind of the best way, and it's a quick way. So I actually message a lot of people with the messenger function on Facebook once in a while, and say hey, can you just give me a quick interview? Can we talk a little bit about this and this, or can you send over something that we might be able to integrate for a sweepstakes or something. So you can always push ideas to me, either via email, but also through Facebook or anything. That would be fantastic. And with that podcast or something idea that I have, obviously I need kind of German speaking people, because I want to distribute it to the German market. So in that way, either get me someone that knows a lot about that area. It can be a client that had traveled there. It can be, maybe a former person that represented it, or whatever. I think they know much better who represents their area at its best, basically. And then I think there's always a great way making stuff out of it. So basically, intentionally, what I want to do, I want to connect myself and our family. That's what we're doing a lot more these days. So Julia and myself, my sister, who's running the company with me. So to do it a lot more personal. So we write all emails, and that already started before the shutdown, though, to clients, where we ask for feedback and stuff on a personal level. So we always say thank you for choosing a family company to travel with, and we kind of need your business, and thank you so much. And then we sign everything off with family Kohlenberg. So they connect the family and the persons to the company. In a way, we kind of copied that from a lot of resorts and hotels in Austria that do that pretty well, to give a warm and welcoming feel, so that you can say you actually even know the family that's behind it. And that way, people are much more likely also to listen to you and to doing what you suggest to them when they know you as a person, and not just as a company. or like a corporation or whatever. So when you, especially now, that helps us a lot already when we ask people to please rebook and not cancel, or to, you know, please accept a voucher and support us. We are getting such a great feedback from others, from our clients, that say, yeah, of course we'll support you and don't worry about us. And, you know, not saying that everyone is like that, unfortunately, but it's kind of, I think, a very high percentages that way. So that's kind of a whole strategy where we are moving into, to kind of connect the people more with the company.
I like that. And that says a lot to the way that you've built your company, you and your sister. One of the questions was, you know, what kind of content do Germans want to hear right now? But I think you answered that with hidden gems and unique things about your destination. So I would urge not only DMOs, but also every attraction and every hotel and every restaurant within that city to work with your DMO and get them some of those secret, unique things that you know better than anyone else.
Yeah,
that maybe
and I think, you know, having
your DMO doesn't know. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, you know, now I think there will be kind of a new appreciation for things, and for something such as a vacation that you can take, especially long haul. So I think people will just enjoy it so much more after this phase, which is probably the one good thing which will come out of this thing, of this whole crisis, that people will, you know, they will much more appreciate sitting in a restaurant, having ocean view, for example, or, you know, having a farm to table experience or whatever. So it's kind of, I think they will just enjoy it so much more, and that's why they are looking much more for the hidden gems and for the real cool stuff, instead of, you know, the tourism hotspots where there's just mass tourism going through, basically. Which, not to say that there is also a demand for that as well, but I think now is really also the chance for the smaller DMOs and for the more alternative products to come into place. Yeah, I'm seeing a question here also coming in chat, which is really long, but
yeah, Miner had a lot to say. Yeah. You can pick on me later for that, Miner. But it's something that you spoke of before. And you talked a little bit about enticements, value adds, promotions. Most all shows where we would normally go and do this type of promotion has been moved to the fourth quarter. Yeah. You know, how can we prepare for that? How can the suppliers prepare for things that you might need to keep people for 2020 or change their mind to book with you in 2021?
Yeah, I would, as we are saying, I think we are holding on to a lot of bookings due to the vouchers and the rebookings. So the more incentives that we get from your end, so if it's you know, a price advantage, if it's a voucher, if it's some kind of value add in any kind of way, would help us a lot, obviously, because that way we can make sure that we have another, as you said, enticement, or like another value add for the client to stick to that and to make a rebooking. So if there are specific attractions, for example, that want to work with us and saying, like, we give you, let's say, a free entry to Kennedy Space Center, to Disney World, to Universal Studios, to whatever, a harbor cruise, or a dolphin watching tour or something. And we can then approach the client and say, like, you know, you would have gone to Florida with that and that constellation of a trip. If you would, you know, consider to rebook, we would offer you free, you know, a free dolphin watching tour when you book your next trip with us, which will look exactly the same, but you will get that for free, for example. So I think that's, I mean, having all those products ready for next year is 100% necessary, because it will come back eventually. But, you know, it could even help us before that to promote and get people to hold on to that trip.
Is there anyone that has worked better for your clients and in the German market than others? You know, we all think value add, we think free breakfast, we think you know, a couple drink vouchers at a hotel. You know, is there anything that's worked better, or are you looking for something kind of like your podcast, or you're looking for something different and unique?
Well, you know, Germans love their breakfast. I think everyone got that already. So it's kind of all these things definitely work and are decision makers for like one hotel versus the other one. But to, you know, kind of really move the needle, basically, obviously the enticements and like the things and value adds that you need to offer need to be a little more than that. But we just, for example, ran a big campaign with SeaWorld Parks and Entertainment last year. It's actually 2 years ago, where we asked them to that we sponsor, the campaign basically was we approached all of our clients through our social media channels, so that all the other ones who hadn't booked with us would see it as well, and we offered them free vouchers or like free entrances into the park, in one of the parks basically, and we just paid for those vouchers with marketing funds basically. So that we used from our company, and that was such a big success because people saw, like, people who hadn't booked with us but had probably booked through, like, directly or on the internet or something, they would go like, oh shoot, you know, I wish I would have booked through them, because, and then we continued that on. So we kind of created this atmosphere on social media that when you book with us, there's always the chance that later on, eventually, they will approach, like the tour operator will approach you again and have like something for you as well. So that, for example, has worked really well. So we just basically used the marketing funds of SeaWorld Entertainment to promote actually the free vouchers to the already existing clients, but actually promoting it to the ones that haven't booked with us. So that was actually, I think, a pretty cool move, because I haven't seen something like that before. But that way, that's a really cool, a cool message actually to send out. So, but I think there can be really many creative things. We can do sweepstakes, we can raffle away stuff that when people win it, they have to book an entire trip, you know, to actually experience it. But it has to be something, obviously, that's worth something.
Okay. One of the questions that came through was, how do, and this is always the question of big destination, small destination, big attraction, small attraction. When you're getting information for your podcast, how do the smaller destinations or the smaller attractions break through? How do they break through the noise of all of the big things around them? And the second part to that is, when you're talking marketing and sweepstakes and these programs that we can build, are there options for smaller budgets to still make a big impact?
Absolutely, they are always. And it actually answers both questions together, is that what smaller destinations should always look into is combining their budget with another small destinations in the region. And, you know, 2, 3, 4, 5 people teaming up into one with all having a smaller budget can make actually a big campaign. And looking at the fact that Germans are not going into one specific destination only, no one's flying over, not even to San Francisco, for example, to just see San Francisco and fly back out. They will do some kind of itinerary anyways. And that's a good example as well. I mean, Hubertus is in the call as well. I've seen that before. So Annette is here. But so we have a lot of regional CVBs in California, for example, that even don't have a lot of money, but combined all of them, we've done a huge campaign for at least 4 or 5 years in a row now, with quite a decent budget. So that's actually for smaller attractions and even smaller attractions, but also the smaller destinations. That's a good way to combine it. It can be, and you can do it everywhere. You can do it like Texas is Dallas, Fort Worth, Houston, San Antonio, for example, could be a nice campaign because they will do an itinerary anyway. So it's always good to look for combining destinations. We are doing huge campaigns every year with Zion National Park and Bryce Canyon, for example. And then, Utah as a CVB joins into it as well. So that's kind of, that makes it big campaigns, because a small destination can also always do something with us on a separate basis, but then it will always be limited in some way, and we will probably have to stick to our own media that we already use, like e-newsletters and stuff, which are still very strong, but it still makes much more sense to, if you said you want to break out of that noise, basically combine it with more, and then you can.
Okay. So one of the questions as I looked through, and I'm sorry I missed it when we were talking about travel patterns, but one of the questions, which I think is really valid, is when you talk to your clients and you're talking about bookings in 2021, are you seeing a change in the length? Normally in summer we might see a length of the vacation.
Yeah.
So normally it's a week or 2 weeks. Are you seeing that difference there? Are they talking about traveling for a shorter period of time?
No, if the people rebook something that they've already booked, they usually rebook the exact same trip that they have done before, because I think it's psychologically basically a way of, they mentally have adapted to that. They were just excited to do that trip, and they just want to move it and do it at a different time and place. We don't really see a lot of changes in rebookings that are made at this specific moment. How it is going to look after this whole campaign, or after this whole crisis, basically, that we don't know if something changes there. But I would imagine that people would probably stay longer in destinations to experience them more, and to have time, and to leave themselves time as well, because as we all know, Germans are usually pretty hasty when they go through, and they do an entire Southwest trip, for example, from San Francisco, LA, San Diego to Vegas, and all the national parks within 2 weeks sometimes. So I think it will probably, lead into people want to calm down a little more, enjoy every destination a little bit longer, and then therefore go maybe 2 or 3 times even to the same destination.
Okay. Are you hearing anything from flights? I mean, everything we're talking about really resonates on when flights happen again. And we're all on pins and needles for it, but have you talked with any of the airlines?
I'm frequently in contact with the airlines every day, basically, but on a different level, actually, because I'm actually pissed off on how they treat us at the moment, because they don't refund the tickets that they would actually, as I mentioned before, have to by German law. But obviously with their own crisis, even Lufthansa is struggling a lot these days, which we all know is a very healthy company and has always been. So it takes them sometimes 6-7 months to refund a ticket, and then we would obviously have to refund much earlier. So we are basically like a bank giving out money which we don't even have. So we are struggling a lot with these airline things on that level at the moment. So when they will bring that, Lufthansa, for example, is down to 95% of their flights in Germany. So they cut back on 95%, so only 5% is still running. They grounded a lot of the big planes and aircrafts for a while now. So it's kind of, as I mentioned before, I think it will come back slowly afterwards. So it's probably obviously the main destinations like in New York and Miami and San Francisco, LA, they will probably come back earlier, and then they will eventually come back to the other and secondary destinations as well shortly afterwards, probably. But yeah, as I mentioned, that's kind of all big prediction that we don't really know.
I think we all would love a crystal ball that actually works.
Yes.
Right now.
And I think, to be honest, I think the airlines do as well, because they don't know anything as well.
True. This question is crazy interesting, and if we're all keeping our fingers crossed that 2020 we can still salvage some of it towards the end of the year, but historically in an election year, travel's been a little crazy, and we happen to have one of those this year. Do you think that in the midst of all of this that might be a factor, or that will be totally overlooked because people just want to get out and travel?
Usually, it's always interesting on the question of, is that really affecting international travel? Because I don't think international travel really cares as much as that an election year is going on. I think they don't really care a lot, except for the fact that they are following it. They care much more about the outcome of it. So it's probably influenced much more the year afterwards. As you know, Germans not even judging in any way, but as, for example, Germany was very heavily influenced by like the Democrats in the US. So I think if you would have the election in Germany, a lot would probably like 70 or 75% would have voted for the Democrats, and it's very much connected also to the president itself, I think. And so we kind of saw a downturn in numbers after Trump was elected. The year after, it came back the year afterwards. So we are now almost up, or like, as I said before, we had a record year actually this year. So it eventually will come back. So it can give a boost or decrease to however the election comes out. But I think the election year itself for Germany or Europeans is not in any way a decision maker.
Okay, that's good. So we talked a little bit about what we could do to help you right now, you know, providing marketing information, providing hidden gems, some unique information to help you with your podcast. You are looking at possibly contracting new product for 2021. I asked this question and none of us will take it personally, but is there anything we're doing that is not helpful? What should we not be doing that is not helpful for you? Because this is about us learning how to help you better.
Well, at the moment, there is, as I said, there's not really a lot you can do. So there's really also not a lot you're doing wrong. I'm having a little bit of the, let's say, I'm a little bit afraid that after all these things end, that a lot of CVBs might cut down on international markets in terms of funding and budgets and everything, or, you know, they might want to look into more domestic markets first before they come back into international markets. Some might, some even might get rid of their German representations, and I'm a little worried about that. And I think that would be a huge and big mistake if someone would do that, actually, because we're already seeing now that a lot of people paused their international accounts, which probably now makes sense, but only if they would come back in August, September, October, maybe, to make sure they are stronger than before, basically, and to come in a more extensive way than before, and to do a lot more than before, because I think like the perspective of the marketing is really important for the German tour operators.
So pulling off of that, a follow-up question there. What is your booking window? What is you mentioned, you know, August through October to start marketing again. I mean, obviously we'll know that better in the next couple of months as we see how things progress. But when should you be marketing for a booking window for Germany?
Well, as I mentioned, I don't really know when this whole thing is over. My guess would be that we can probably start marketing in September, October already for 21. The booking pattern for Germans, as most of you all know, I think, is usually like between 3 to 4 months, and then maybe even 10 to 12 months in advance. And I talked to many of you in the past during the shows also that there is kind of a trend in Germany over the past 3 years where it tends to get earlier and earlier and later. So we're kind of missing the middle a little bit. So we're actually seeing now in July, people come in and like, we want to book for next year in September. And we can't even fulfill that wish because we don't have rates for the flights. We sometimes don't have rates for the hotels. So we kind of stick onto that and then come back to them later on when it's bookable. But it's a crazy trend for people to really early book in Germany. That's probably going to be a little different this year though, because they can't really book very early, maybe because maybe in June, July, we don't even know how the whole situation will continue. But maybe in September, October, they might be ready. And I think we all are craving to be back basically and doing something and doing a holiday. So I think it's a good way to come back then and do something then to make sure you have also something to look forward to in 21.
All right. So I can't believe that we've been talking for almost an hour because I could talk to you forever on this subject. I think we've talked about some really unique things. Mm-hmm. Any last minute ideas or last minute thoughts you want to share with us?
Not really. I mean, I think we've touched on so many different things, and I just want to say we really kind of have your back, and we really try to make it through this crisis, and I think we will be really fine. And we are, as I mentioned, a really healthy company. And as I mentioned before, I mean, add me on social media, add me write me an email whenever you have specific single questions for your specific CVB or DMO or attraction. I'm always happy to help, especially now that I don't have really a lot to do anyway. So it's kind of come back to me whenever you want. And we kind of miss you here in Germany, and we miss the shows actually. And as we might not even be able to see us at IPW, I'm really hoping that we will be able to at least chat a little bit and make sure we are back at the end of the year to promote 21.
Well, we can't thank you enough for sharing, spending the time at 7 o'clock, at 8 o'clock at night there. You've spent your evening with us. So we appreciate you spending time with us and sharing a little bit more about what's going on with you. We miss you too. We have your back as well. We're doing this series. I put up on the screen some of the new marketing and travel trade, what we have coming up in the next couple of weeks. And Timo, I'd like to circle back with you in a month or so and see how things are going and what else we might be able to do with you.
Absolutely.
It'll be nice to check in as we move forward. Thank you so much. And everyone, thank you so much for joining us again. I will send out Timo's information. And if you have any questions for either one of us, I am sure we're going to be happy to answer it.
Yes, anytime. Perfect.
Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful day. And Timo, thanks so much. We'll talk soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.